What are the symptoms of adrenal fatigue? That is a great question. If you've been feeling extra tired lately, then you may have been wondering if adrenal fatigue is to blame. If that sounds familiar, then you are in the right place. I am here to answer that question in today's video, plus share with you a proven method for helping you snap out of it quick. Hi, I'm Dr. Kelly Shockley, Doctor of Cause Chiropractic, board certified in sports medicine and specialized in clinical nutrition. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the most common signs your body is giving you when your adrenals are fatigued. There is far more to it than just extreme fatigue. Then I'll be covering the best nutrients to add to boost adrenal function. These are great to add to your regular regimen to help you feel more vivacious fast. And finally, I'll be sharing with you the most critical variable that will make or break your recovery. You do not want to miss this one. Let's get started. What are the most common symptoms and signs your body will be giving you when your adrenals are a little on the fatigued side? Well, let's get right into it. These I'm going to be sharing with you are the 7 most common signs that your adrenals are not functioning quite the way that they should be. Now, there are more to it than this, but these are the most common presentations. The very first one would be just the difficulty of getting out of bed in the morning, even after you've slept for a long amount of time. Sleeping and the challenges around that for people are one of the best ways to set yourself up for adrenal fatigue. So obviously figuring out how to have better sleep quality is like a must if you want to get your adrenals back into good working order. Now, the second most common sign is the lack of fatigue that you're more than likely already experiencing. Now, this lack of fatigue is not something that ever seems to be remedied. If you did get a good night of sleep, like you wake up not feeling like your sleep was very restorative or restful, but this also can show up in that afternoon lull that people get where they just feel like they're running on empty. They've hit a wall. They need to get a second wind. Oftentimes, this is when people are reaching for another dose of caffeine of whatever variety they like. That fatigue in the afternoon is something that's very much related with the adrenals not functioning quite at an ideal level as well. Something that's super interesting and another sign that's really common, believe it or not, when your adrenals are not functioning the right way, you can have a more difficult time at handling stress, or the way that you would normally handle stress becomes heightened. It's almost like you just don't have capacity for stress any longer. And part of it is because the adrenals are what facilitate that process. And when they're overworked, they're overtired, they're fatigued, whatever you want to term this, they have a more exaggerated reaction to stress than what they would if everything had been functioning normally and they were healthy and happy. So if you feel like you just don't have capacity to handle stress any longer, it could be very much so that your adrenals are a bit toast. Okay, a little on the fatigued side. Something else that people can experience is a craving for salty foods. Now, you also could be craving sugary foods, mostly just those refined, not like simple carbohydrate type foods. Part of it is because of the hormones that the adrenal is supposed to be producing when it's not in a state of flight or fight. And they are all dependent on different minerals. So if you are burning through those, you don't have enough of them, your body's going to be making you crave things that are more dense in your sodium, your potassium, other minerals that are needed to try to produce normal levels of the other hormones that the adrenals are responsible for. Something that some people will experience is higher energy level at the end of the day, or this could show up with not being able to fall asleep, or maybe you fall asleep but you wake up at like 2, 3 in the morning and your brain just is going at full tilt. Part of why this is happening is because the ebb and flow of the hormones that your body is producing is altered compared to what it should be. Again, cortisol is one of the main stress hormones that people are more familiar with. And cortisol does have a need in our body. Like we need it to function properly. But cortisol, when we have normal levels, should be highest first thing in the morning, because part of the responsibility of cortisol, normal responsibility, is to help us wake up and become alert and ready to take on our day. Well, when people's adrenals are on the fatigue side, it's almost like this ebb and flow of cortisol that we have naturally through the day, as I was saying, shifts. And people may have it spike where it's spiking at 2 a.m, which could be part of why you're waking up in the middle of the night and not making it to when the alarm would be going off. Or maybe your cortisol spiking before you would actually go to bed. That could be part of the challenge of being able to fall asleep when you know you need to be going to bed. It's just inappropriate spikes of cortisol, and then also its counterpart is DHEA. Ultimately, again, just other hormone imbalances because the adrenals have become fatigued. The 6th most common sign that people generally are experiencing when their adrenals are fatigued is an overuse of stimulants, whether that's sugar to try to give you that quick pick me up, right? So that, again, in the afternoon when you're crashing, maybe you're reaching for candy to try to give you that last little boost to make it through the day, or caffeine. Challenge is both of those are really destructive to normal adrenal function. They can actually compound the issue. And the last one is a weakened immune system. Now, maybe you're sitting there going like, I don't really get sick all that often, which that's great, but it's not always about getting sick more frequently or like catching everything that comes your way. It can also be that when you do get sick, it like really takes you out. It takes you a longer time to recover than what it should be. So it's just overall a weakened immune system because of what's happening throughout the body when the adrenals are taxed and overtaxed, and really what actually set up the adrenals for being taxed in the first place. It's not always just about chronic levels of stress, but also underlying other health challenges that are putting more demand on the adrenals to do more work than what the adrenals are designed to do. And I'm super curious, did you know that all of those symptoms or behaviors are things that can come about when the adrenals are fatigued? Let me know your response down in the comments below. I can't wait to see your thoughts. Let's get into the best nutrients to be adding into your regimen to help give those adrenal glands more of what they need in order to function properly. The first one I want to mention are the B vitamins. B vitamins are super important for basically like getting your mind and your body back into gear. There are several different types of B vitamins, but the one that I want to speak to more specifically is B12. B12 is like the energy vitamin. In fact, if you look at the natural energy drinks, you will see like there's 40,000% of your daily intake of B12. And a lot of these because you can get a boost of energy. I have patients who have gone to get B12 injections, or they like to use those IV therapies, and they've got all kinds of different themes to them, if you will. B12 is something else that they'll put in there to just help with fatigue and exhaustion and not sleeping well at night. Of course, taking that at the wrong time of the day could be problematic. But B12 is something that helps with the energy production in the body. It is actually really a common deficiency, especially as we start to get older, because our digestive systems aren't doing as good of a job at being able to absorb it, which speaks to making sure the digestive system is working properly so that whatever you're putting it in, if it's in the form of food or if it's in the form of extra nutrition, that your digestive system actually has the ability to absorb it. So it's one of my first go-tos to help support the adrenal and really everything else in the body that I see collectively come up oftentimes when I'm doing comprehensive lab analysis with my patients. Now, another nutrient that's incredibly important, that's actually the most common nutrient deficiency in the United States, is magnesium. There's anywhere to be said like 80% or more, I believe, of the population is deficient in magnesium. Now, most people understand magnesium is helpful for sleeping at night. That's probably when I've surveyed my patients time and time again. That is the most common use that they think of when they think of magnesium. However, there's more to the story when it comes to magnesium. Magnesium makes up 1/3 of every single cell in the body. It's required for 80% of every biochemical reaction that happens 24/7. The brain cannot function without it. And when you're dealing with chronic levels of stress, the adrenal glands are actually burning through more magnesium just to try to keep up with managing the stress. Your heart also, it's not going to be beating the way that it should be, or your blood pressure is not going to be staying nice and neutral like it should be if you don't have enough magnesium. In fact, did you know that the first study that was done with aspirin that showed there was a decrease in risk of heart attack by people who were taking it actually was combined with magnesium? So was it really the blood thinning aspect of the aspirin that helped to reduce the outcome or the occurrence of heart attacks? Or was it the magnesium that was required in order for the heart to beat properly? Or maybe it was a combination, but you don't ever hear about magnesium in those early studies. So magnesium is critically important. And again, with the comprehensive labs that I do, which I'm not doing micronutrient testing per se with my patients. So I'm not just looking at what are their B vitamin levels, what are their magnesium levels. I look at overall function of the body. And what I see come up very often is that people do not have enough magnesium going into their system. So that is something that you could add in for extra benefit. Now, word of caution, if you will, not all magnesium supplements are created equally. Stay away from magnesium oxide. It doesn't really get anywhere in the body. It works very much locally on the gut. So if you have constipation issues, magnesium oxide could really help clear those up. Magnesium citrate is okay, but don't do mega doses because it also will help clear out your digestive system. The magnesium that I prefer is magnesium glycinate, magnesium malate, and then magnesium L-threonate is the only proven form that actually makes it into the brain. It can cross that blood-brain barrier. So they're not all created equally, just know that. But it's incredibly important for so many things. It should just be part of your daily regimen anyway. One of the last ones that I want to share with you is CoQ10, also known as coenzyme Q10. You hear this more in the talk of like when we're talking cardiovascular health, and it's because it's incredibly important for the cardiovascular system, for overall heart function. And in fact, people who are on different types of medications for the cardiovascular system, the medications actually are depleting them of the CoQ10. So a really good cardiologist would also talk about if there is a need for that medication that you also are supplementing with the CoQ10 because of how required it is for normal heart function. But something that we realize, and this is part of why it's great for the heart, is CoQ10 is really protective to the body when we're dealing with stress. So it's another one of my go-tos to add into the equation to make sure that the body is getting what it needs in order to survive the life that we are living. Now, before I get into the most critical variable that will make or break your recovery from adrenal fatigue, I just want to take a moment and remind you to click that subscribe button, turn the notifications on, and give me a big thumbs up while you're down there if you don't mind. I am producing videos for you on a regular basis, teaching you how to improve brain health, gut health, boost your immune system's health, everything to help you be able to take back control of your health so you can live and be more unstoppable and ultimately achieve what I like to call total body mastery. So again, click that subscribe button, turn the notifications on, and give me a big thumbs up. I appreciate your support. Let's get into the most critical variable that will make or break your recovery. What on earth am I talking about? It is the main variable that makes or breaks anything when it comes to health, and it is called food. What you eat is either building you up or breaking you down, and it's critically important with adrenals. As I mentioned, some of the most common underlying themes that you'll see with adrenal fatigue is the craving for salty foods, the craving and using more stimulants of the sugars and the caffeines, along those lines, using more alcohol than what we should be. All of those are detrimental to our health. So if we're caving and we're doing that on an ongoing basis, we're actually compounding the issue. So we want to make sure that maybe you don't cut everything out cold turkey, but we keep those types of products at a minimum. Thankfully, our body is pretty resilient and it can respond with us being right like 80 to 90% of the time. So there's some wiggle room in there that will allow you to not feel deprived, that will allow you to still live life. But you need to do 80 to 90% of what is needed for the body to be healthy if you ever really want to recover from adrenal fatigue and anything else health related for that matter. So when it comes to adrenal glands specifically, what does that look like? The biggest thing that we need to be incorporating in are more of those healthy good fats, moderate amounts of clean proteins, meaning that the livestock, if you're eating animal proteins, which I do highly recommend, I just recommend that you make sure that they are raised the way that God intended them to be raised. They're not being adulterated. They're not being injected with hormones or antibiotics. They're eating what they were meant to. They're not stuck in feedlots. They're able to roam and eat on the natural vegetation that they would normally. So clean proteins. And you also can throw in the nuts and the seeds and, beans if you consume beans. But protein is really important. As far as a whole, what's a great place to kind of look into further guide for how to eat? You want to consume things that are lower glycemic index. Now, if you haven't heard of the glycemic index before, this is just an index that tells us how high does a food spike your blood sugar? Or the other way you can think of this is how fast is your food being converted to sugar? So for example, a baked potato with nothing on it is incredibly high glycemic. So you could essentially in your mind, okay, not actually do this, but scoop it out, fill it up with sugar. That's kind of what the body does with it. Or bananas are very high glycemic when they're really ripe. If you eat not ripe bananas, they're not really high glycemic because they haven't been converted to sugar. They're still really starchy at that point. Why is this important? Maintaining normal blood sugar levels is incredibly important for not also stressing out the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland does play some function into our metabolism of our carbohydrates, our fats, and our proteins. It's not supposed to be the main guy, but it does play into that. And when we're consuming foods that spike our blood sugar high more often, we're actually stressing that whole process, including the adrenal glands. So get familiar with low glycemic foods. And the easiest way to do that is if you stick to eating healthy fats, a good amount, like every meal you should be consuming healthy fats. 50 to 70% of our calories should be coming from that. About 20 to 30% should be coming from proteins. As far as carbohydrates go, that's where you're going to find a lot of the high glycemic index foods. For example, sugar itself has a glycemic index of 68. The closer you get to 100, the worse it is for you. The next set of foods that are higher glycemic index than sugar itself are all of your grains. First, it's all the gluten-containing grains. Second, it is all the gluten-free grains. So if you switch to gluten-free options because you thought it sounded like it was healthier or you believe that it was healthier for you, you actually, if you're using a lot of the pastry products that are gluten-free or crackers or whatever that are gluten-free, you may actually be creating more detriment from a blood sugar regulation standpoint because of what it's doing. If you want to stick to carbohydrates that are healthy that you don't have to think twice about, it's all of your vegetables that you want to eat on a regular basis. Fruits, I have people use fruit sparingly. Yes, they're great. They're loaded with antioxidants and a bunch of phytonutrients that our body needs. They have a lot of natural sugars in them that will create problems. We weren't meant to eat fruit all day long, every single day. Fruit only ever came into season normally, depending on where you're at, 1 to 2 times a year. And it normally served as a purpose to help us store fat to be able to make it through times when food wasn't as available for us. Well, we've got food available for us all of the time. So we don't need to eat fruit every single day at every single meal. Stick to 1 serving of fruit per day and you will be doing yourself a great bit of favor. Now, if you're sitting there going I'm not entirely sure of what this looks like, maybe you're more a visual, you need an example. I have an example for you. All you need to do is go down to the description right below the video, click on it so it expands out. Scroll down, look for the full body reset meal plan. That meal plan is designed to help reduce inflammation, give the body what it actually needs. It shows you more of what eating low glycemic looks like without it actually calling it that. And it's easy to do. You don't have to follow the food plan. You can just make some of the recipes. The recipes are super easy to make. They do not have a conglomerate of all kinds of ingredients. They're not going to take a ton of time because life is already busy. We don't need to create more stress in trying to eat healthy either, right? Same thing for that meal plan. If you want to actually implement a meal plan for the week and see how you're feeling by the end of the week, that meal plan has been designed to have you not have to be in the kitchen every single day. And then I've also thrown in your grocery list for you too, to just keep things easy and simple, because that's what we're trying to do is reduce stress so that the body can function the way that it should. So again, just go down there, click on the link, tell me where to send that, and you will have instant access. I appreciate you being here. Hopefully this was helpful information for you, and I look forward to seeing you on a future episode. God bless.